Dirib Armagin. It's very nice to be here. Thank you very much for being here. Brian and I work upstairs. We're the closest. I think a lot of you have travelled a lot further than we have. I work here in Fiontar Scoil in Gaeilge, which is the School of Irish here in Dublin City University. Brian works there as well. I'm the editorial side, if you like, and Brian is the technical side. Thank you. And just to give you a little bit of background, we're going to be talking about the National Corpus of Irish project, which is slightly different from what you're doing, and we certainly don't have a background in media, but I think this will give you a picture of something slightly different, which also relies on archives, if you like. We work on the Gaois research group. We work on various different resources for the Irish language and the heritage of the Irish language and supporting that. We started about 20 years ago now with the National Terminology Database, which we've been developing since then, and have worked on other language resources, so corpora, of which we will speak more, place names databases, which is loganim.ie, which is the National Place Names Database, digitisation of the National Folklore Collection, another archive project, if you like, which we've been heavily involved in the last 10 years, and a project of Irish language biographies as well. So these are all pretty different. They're all different sorts of expertise, but they're all tied together by an interest in the language, an interest in language resources, and an interest in making resources available to the public. And I think this is what we specialise in, making things easily and available to the public and in a way which draws people in. And that's what we try and do anyway. Here we are, standing outside on a sunny day. Today we're going to look at the Irish language, the need for a corpus, the National Corpus of Irish. We mixed up Ireland and Irish, as Irish people often do. The aims, methodology and results of that project very briefly. And then we're going to talk about news archives, and Brian in particular will talk about news archives and how these tie in very closely to these corpora and how important they are for these corpora and for the information. And we're going to talk a little bit about the possibilities afforded by that. But some of you know a lot more about that than we do. But it's a start of a talk about that. So the Irish language. I'm not going to start explaining the Irish language today. Irish is spoken in Ireland, as you know, as well as English. It's a lesser used language. It's in a minoritised position in Ireland, and it's minoritised digitally in terms of resources and so on. It's minoritised as well in terms of usage. So it's very much a lesser used language. However, it's strong in certain ways. It's used very much in the education. It's used in translation. It's an official language of the European Union. It's heavily used in these official capacities, if you like, and it's also a symbolic importance, I think, when people use Irish in Ireland. It's also used by people bringing up their families in normal ways. It's also used in certain areas of Ireland where Irish is spoken as an everyday language. So there are lots of different ways in which Irish is used, if you like. It's not a normal language in that many speakers of Irish learned Irish, so have learned Irish through the school system as a personal interest and so on, and are now using Irish every day, which isn't the normal thing, if you like, for every language. But most speakers of Irish are really L2 learners. So that's something to bear in mind when you start looking at corpora and language resources. What is a corpus? You all know this, but just to start with the definitions. It's a collection of language text. It's not Google. It's not everything that's on the internet. It's language text that has been picked to be representative of the language or representative of whatever you're trying to research. You're trying to get a broad range of language. You're trying to get different varieties of language, maybe spoken, maybe written, maybe official, maybe unofficial, if you like, language. And most corpora are enormous. They contain millions of words. And that's because natural language is so creative that you really need a huge amount of material in order to be able to look at it and to use it. The uses of corpora, of course, are for research, for language research, for research into change in language, into how language works. Of course, it's used for AI and for things like that as well, for creating language models, which I know you're all very interested in. But you can't do any of that stuff without a good corpus, basically. And this is the foundation of the work. The Irish language needs corpora. We all need corpora. It's useful for research, for translation, for creation language models, as I say, something that's become very much to the fore in the last few months, in teaching, in terminology, in lexicography, that is dictionary making, and for many other aspects of research. In the case of Irish, it's been recognised in the Digital Plan for Irish, which has recently been published, which is a plan for creating digital resources and bringing Irish to the fore in the digital world, is the need for resources for Irish online and for funding for that. And it's been recognised that, of course, for Irish there are lots of corpora already. Lots of different projects have gone on over the years. I won't go into them here, but lots of work has been done in corpora in different universities. I see somebody from Trinity here, from, in DCU and in other places as well, have done an enormous amount of very, very valuable work. The problem is that they're not all in one place. They're not always accessible. They're not always available to people to use, and they're not comprehensive, and they're not up to date. So there hasn't been a single resource for the language. This is where we came in. We thought that having a national corpus for the language would reduce long-term costs, would give lots of people, create a resource that lots of people could use, so different sorts of people could use it, because it would be created to be as open, as accessible as possible, and that we could reuse resources which have already been created, and support other government projects like the Irish Terminology Committee, who are in charge of creating new terms for Irish, dictionary projects, education, translation projects, and so on. So, we went to the government, the department with responsibility for the Irish language. We asked them for funding. They agreed that this was important, and they have funded the National Corpus of Irish project, which is going on we're halfway through it now. It started at the beginning of 2022 and it'll be going on to the end of 2024. And we hope that it will continue after that. So there's our nice logo there. It's supposed to be like a camera lens, I think, and it's sort of bringing language into focus. So just to talk you through the aims, I think it should be pretty obvious by now that we want to create a corpus that people can use, that people can access, and that different sorts of people can use. So we're going to create 4 corpora. One corpus wouldn't do it. The first one will be an enormous corpus, about 155 million words of Irish, which, when you consider again that this is a lesser used language, this is not English, that's a very, very large collection. So we're starting the year 2000. We had to start somewhere. We had to draw a line somewhere. And that's from that point onward, we'll be collecting the Irish language as it is used. The second corpus is written Irish, so again, focused on a slightly different register, maybe, of use to translators and so on. The third corpus is very important corpus of spoken Irish. Spoken Irish is not the same as written Irish, as same as every language. Languages are used differently when they're spoken, as you know, as archivists. So this will be of interest to researchers in speech and so on, and it will be transcribed speech corpora, and also perhaps some audio material as well. And finally, the monitor corpus, which is 1 million words from every year, so that you can look at particular words and how they've changed. So you can take the word, the example, of course, is coronavirus. So when did that start being used, and when did it suddenly spike, and when did it stop being used? You can trace other words too through the years and see how language has changed and see how usage has changed as well, which is very interesting, again, for a language like Irish, which is evolving very quickly, I think. So there you are, our nice Venn diagram there. So that you have your national corpus, and you have several corpora within that. Our methodology, I'm not going to go into details about metadata formats and things like that, but we've spent a lot of time trying to take things out of PDFs and trying to copy and paste things and so on. But basically what we're trying to do is collect lots and lots of text from everywhere we can find it and bring it all together. So we had to talk to people about what they wanted. A lot of questions about copyright, which I won't bore you with, finding ways to provide access, how are we going to make this available, and then technical developments, the API, the websites, the taggers, search and access tools, and so on. Scoping requirements, this is where Brian comes in, how we process this, how we clean it up, and how we tag it, and so on. And then how we create a system so that you can find this, and so you can listen to it and edit it, and so on. And then a nice website, so that we want this to be openly available, and you don't have to be a corpus scientist to be able to use this. We've been collecting material from existing corpora. We've been reusing as much as there is, and new material. This is one of the huge challenges we're facing. So collecting material. So the point of a corpus, as you understand, is that you need to have a whole spread of language. So there's lots of other certain genres, loads of legislation in Irish, which is extremely boring, and it only uses a very particular register of language. And then there are other things like annual reports. So there are endless annual reports available in Irish and English. Again, they use certain terms, certain phrases all the time, but all the other stuff isn't there. There isn't, all the other things that are used in the language aren't there. Other genres which are not there. So there are no PhDs, as far as I know, and we've done a lot of searching in biology, for example, in Irish. It's just not done in Irish, and in many other languages as well. Maybe other publications apart from school textbooks are not available in those materials. Instruction manuals, you can't get an instruction manual for your phone in Irish, for example. So they're just not there. And then particular materials for which there are very few sources, for example, emails. Nobody wants to give us a dump of their emails for understandable reasons, even though we do anonymise everything. Student essays, some lecturers are a bit wary about handing off their student essays. Text messages, again, people are funny about that. Natural conversation, it's very labour intensive to record a conversation. And people do it, of course, for research, but it's very labour intensive. Visits to the doctor, again, you're not going to set down your recorder in front of you while you tell your doctor your problems. So these are challenges, and these are recognised in every corpus, and it's just something you have to deal with and work around. And then other things are totally over-representative. So Twitter, for example, and you mentioned the problem with Twitter being lost, but I mean, there's a huge amount of Irish language Twitter, but it's about 3 different people talking to each other most of the time, which is great, and they have lovely Irish, but it's over-representative, it doesn't work. Certain journalists, again, the field of Irish language journalism is pretty small, so again, you'll have the same 5 or 6 people all the time. Questions, again, of gender, so it's our corpus as it is at the moment, there's far too many men, there's not enough women. Lots of problems like this that need to be sorted out. So we need to be pragmatic, but we need to be careful as well. We've been collecting material, we're collecting a lot of material using scanning, OCR and so on, collecting material from publishers, from others who produce Irish language material, collections of folklore, for example, and so on. And we've been doing that, and we've been working, Brian will talk more about the media, we've been working closely with TG Care and others about that. The results, I'll hand over to Brian to talk about that.
Yeah, thanks, Una and Bridge. So yeah, just to continue on from where Una left off there, I'll just talk a little bit about the results so far and where we go from here till the end of the project, and just talk a little bit about the news archives that we've used to populate parts of the corpus, just given the audience today. And just as Una mentioned, the plan is to produce a National Corpus of Irish, but also some subcorpora. So our goal is this year to release sort of 1 or 1.5 of those corpora online via a website, which will be freely accessible to the public and will allow users to search these corpora using sort of standardized tools and interfaces. So this is just a sort of it's a screenshot. It's one view of the website that we're developing. I think Una mentioned it, but one of the various resources that we build here in DCU for the Irish language, including luganum.ie and Charma.ie, the place names database, the terminology database. One of our main goals is to create user-friendly resources so that they're easy to use, and users are happy with them and they use them regularly, and it does helps with the promotion, I suppose, of the Irish language. So we're going for the same the same approach here. So we hope this is just one view, but another view of the corpus will involve the keyword and context display of concordances and results, corpus results. So it'll be adhere to sort of best practice in corpus in the world of corpora. And of course, actually, it'll be bilingual as well. So the interface will be bilingual. It'll be available in both Irish and English. So yeah, and this we hope to release in the autumn. And just to say as well, it's going to be built on the back end is going to be built on a system called No Sketch Engine, which is a well-known system in the world of corpora. So we'll be building on top of that and just building our own interface and adding our own corpora to this system. So just to talk a little bit about the features. So obviously the corpus is in Irish, but it will provide this corpus query system, so you'll be able to query the corpus using a text search, but you'll also be able to drill into the results. As you can see sort of on the right hand side here, there's sort of a box where you can drill into the results using via various metadata that will be tagged, things like year, author, dialect, genres. As Una mentioned, the corpus will be a balanced corpus that will include, as we hope, as many genres as possible, all genres, to be representative of the language as a whole. So you may, as a researcher, want to drill into a particular genre. There's also, you can see there, it's in Irish, but there's the corpus will be tagged for, it'll be lemmatized, so which means that you can search for inflected forms via the dictionary headword form. So, for example, if you're looking for, if you search the word teach, you'll get the word taught and various other forms of the word. So, all of this, as I say, will be according to best practice in the world of corpora. You'll be able to drill into concordances and collocations and so on and so forth. So just, I think Una has kind of covered a lot of this, but just to say again that there'll be four corpora hosted at corpus.ie. It'll become a hub for corpus-based research of the Irish language, we hope. As I mentioned, the interface will be set up for experts, researchers in linguistics, for example, but also for non-experts as well. So quite often with a language like Irish, you have non-experts looking for usage examples, phraseology in a particular genre. For example, journalists who wish to see how things are talked about in a particular genre. So we'll have both a simple and complex interface. As I mentioned, the data will be tokenized, lemmatized. We will be publishing things like n-gram frequency lists and word frequency lists, which are effectively language models, which you can then use to do other nice things. We're all talking about AI these days, but that's part of our remit, is to make this data available in formats that are useful to other projects. And I should say as well that the data will all be freely available and as open as possible in terms of licensing. This project is funded with public money, and it's all with the view to promote the Irish language as widely as possible in whatever form or technology. Sorry, I jumped ahead. Yeah, so free full access to the public, and as I mentioned, full text search, keyword and context concordances, sort, filter, sampling functions, everything that's sort of standard in corpus query systems. And as I mentioned, yeah, language models, frequency lists, and I think Una mentioned application programming interface as well, which is an API, which is important as well if others want to build tools on this data and access it and use it in different ways. So we'll be providing that. That's just more about the project in general. So we're working hard to promote the project, to network across the academic sector in Ireland, everyone who's involved in corpus research and the Irish language and other languages. And we're talking at conferences, seminars and so on, and organising many events like that. And then just to mention the news archives, which might be of interest to the present audience. So a part of the corpus is made up of news. This is probably the easiest piece to do. As Una mentioned, it's really difficult to capture certain genres. It's really difficult to capture language in certain contexts. What wasn't difficult was to gather up the news material for the Irish language. And the reason for that is a lot of it's available nowadays online, and a lot of these organizations provide APIs that allow you to retrieve the material. So it's actually been a nice part of the project. Now, the stage we're at now is, and we're moving into now, is we have to actually pare this material down because we don't want to overrepresent this genre within the corpus. So we'll be actually taking some of this material out. But I just wanted to kind of give a nod to the various news organisations that have helped us with this work. So we have I've listed them here. They're different, mostly news in general, but different types of writing and different formats. Mionella is a video journalism platform. Nos is a culture lifestyle magazine. Nuacht, Gaeltacht, RTE Radio na Gaeltacht. That's the actual transcriptions of the news bulletins on our Irish language radio station. And then there's the news stories from Nuacht RTE, which aren't actually transcriptions of bulletins, but are rather full news stories. And then we have Tuairisc, which is probably the most prolific sort of publisher of news in Irish. And then we had various other contributions down below that we got in various formats. So just quickly on the methods. So some of these, as I mentioned, most of these are online. In some cases they didn't have APIs, but we were able to take the material, just ask for permission, and then take it via the websites. And then, as I mentioned, RTE gave us great assistance. They provided us with APIs, and I say public API there. The API we used for RTE Nuacht was public originally, and then it became private, but we were given access, so that was very useful. And then, yeah, as I say, we just took most of the material from the web with permission, and this is the types of quantities we're talking about here. So each of these sources gave us 1 or 2 or 3 million words, apart from Tuairisc, which was more like 10 million words. It's about 25 million words, which is a huge, as Una mentions, big percentage of the material that we have. So we have to pare that down so that there's not over-representation of that genre. So, where am I? So, yeah. So, and then just to finish, we're now looking at, Una mentioned the possibilities around, well, there's provision for inclusion of audio material and audiovisual material in the corpus. It's really important to include audio material of the spoken language. In our case, what we're aiming for at the moment is transcriptions of audio material. And if possible in the future, we'll include the audio material as well. But for us, as part of the original project design, our main focus is textual. So we want to capture textual representations of the spoken language in the first instance, and if possible in the future, add actual players so you can listen or watch the material that's available textually in a corpus. And the text formats are obviously important to us so that we can search the corpus. So even if you have an audiovisual material, you have to have a textual representation of that, so that it's searchable and so that it's comparable with the rest of the corpus. So that's something we're working on at the moment. As Una mentioned, we've great cooperation from RTE and TG Ceathair. We've met with TG Ceathair recently, and they're willing to provide us with material. And yeah, so we're interested in particular Una mentioned as well colleagues from Trinity here. They're working on speech recognition for Irish. We hope to be able to harness those types of technologies eventually, so that more material audiovisual material as it's created can be added to the corpus. But in the meantime, the shortcut is to use things like subtitles and scripts that are written for sort of natural speech, so that you can kind of capture the spoken language in that way. Just to finish, so just the acknowledgements. I think Una mentioned most of this, but we've been funded by the Department of Tourism, Culture, Arts, Gaeltacht, Sport and Media, which is the department in Ireland, the government department with responsibility for the Irish language, as well as the National Lottery, and we have many other partners that are contributing their time and their expertise. So I suppose one of the things we sought to do as well was involve everyone with expertise on the subject across all institutions in Ireland. So it's very much a national project, and we hope it'll be useful in many spheres. So thanks very much.